I'm now going to move on to what I call serving customers. And really, the key word here is if we want to be distinguishing ourselves and we want to dominate in the market, and again, please think about the bold words. These aren't incremental words. Success and survival is not an incremental activity. It's an absolutely order of magnitude, blow them away, driven initiative. And so think about words like dominate. It's okay to dominate. Some people don't like the word. Well, too bad. I mean, we need to dominate, and that's just it. So on the service side, it's all about servant leadership. It's all about servant leadership, and those companies that don't have a servant leadership culture find it really, really hard to do what I'm going to describe. This is about serving customers, not servicing them. I mean, we service cars. We service washing machines. We service computers. We don't service people. We serve people. And what that really means is it means we give up control. In fact, we move from a world where we impose policies, procedures, and dumb rules, which I'll get to in a minute, on people in favor of saying, yes, what would you like? I'll do it for you. Big change, right? Because at the heart of this whole thing is the human being, not the technology, and the willingness to give up control as a company or as an organization. We're not willing to give up control. It's going to be hard to move to this whole servant leadership ethic. I want you to think about serving customers as having two components. One is what I would call core service. Now think about core service as what people get from you when they do business with you. Like as an example, it could be dial tone from a telecom point of view. If you're in the finance business, it could be quality financial advice. It's the basic platform of your business without which you wouldn't have a business, okay? So you need to identify that. Now the interesting thing is there's a lot of people that actually believe if they provide their core service better, that's the road to nirvana. But it isn't. Because it's a funny thing. I don't recall when I worked for the telecom industry, one day that somebody would call me up and say, Roy, I just made a call, and the dial tone was unbelievable. You provide the best, most pristine dial tone in the world. I love you. I will stay with you forever. Never got a call like that. Why? Because they just kind of, you pick up the phone, they kind of expect that will be. They expect the financial advice to be good. They're not delighted when it is. They're really cheesed off when it's not. They expect the washing machine to work to specs. They expect when you hook up a high-speed internet line to a computer, it actually works. They expect when you boot up a computer, it actually works. That's not the stuff that delights people. Now, the interesting thing is, when you ask them to rate the service, it's really hard to get an A. In fact, you'll never get an A from your core service. You get C's because they expect it to work. And no matter how much you try to increase the pristineness of that dial tone, they'll never give you an A. First of all, they'll never discern it. And they actually expect you to do it. However, the converse is also true. If it's not working, they give you an F. They think you're an idiot. They run telling everybody how crummy you are. So the interesting thing here, and the paradox, is core service needs to be 24/7 provided. It needs to meet specs all the time. But don't expect it to be the source of loyalty, because it isn't. But as I said, if it's not meeting specs, they'll leave you in a heartbeat and they'll scream to a million other people how crummy you are. That's just the way it is. So if that's the issue, then what's the source of loyalty? It's the experience. Shouldn't be a surprise. We talked a little bit about this in marketing. I mean, the world in terms of success is experience-based. And from a service point of view, it's how people feel when they get the service you give them. That's the source of loyalty. If you can blow them away, you can dazzle them, you leave them gasping for breath, they'll give you an A. And also, what will they do? They'll tell everybody else how wonderful you are. And so the challenge is that you need to do both, right, as an organization. You need to provide satisfactory core service, and you need to provide remarkable, blowing them away, dazzling customer service. So the question is, how do you do that? Well, you start out with the fact that you got to recognize people are different. We talked again about, is there a difference between marketing and serving customers? You know, in many respects, they're so close. I mean, we're using the same terms or the same concepts with different terminology. You know, because to dazzle anybody, you need to treat them as an individual, which means you have to vary how you treat them versus somebody else. The interesting thing is if you treat everybody the same, you get inconsistent levels of customer satisfaction. You buy that? If you treat everybody in according to what they need, then you get a constant level of customer satisfaction. So the whole vary the treatment principle is critical. And it has amazing demands on your organization, because our organizations generally aren't set up that way. Why? Because we're too busy servicing people with a common set of policies and rules and procedures that apply to everybody. Generally is the way it is. You flip that upside down, put the customer in control, your internal world is now in chaos until you sort it out. So I'm going to give you 4 really complicated ideas here in terms of how to dazzle people. Have you ever walked into a store and have been met with a clerk or a server who you've concluded really hates your guts? Come on, of course. This is a person that stands 17 yards away, looks at you with utter disdain, and would rather be doing something absolutely else, is really uncomfortable with the position. So here you have somebody put in a position of dealing with a customer, and what kind of communications do they really convey? They hate human beings. So simple. First of all, we need to get right back to basics and start to recruit people in our organizations that love human beings. I know that sounds simple. But when you think it through, in terms of what that requires you to do in changing your internal organization, it's huge. You need to change all your recruitment practices, all your training practices. By the way, can you train people to like humans? You can train them to grin, but that's as far as it goes. The grin training isn't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody that absolutely loves dealing with people and the perfections that they have. They are out there, and you've run into them in your life, and are they not remarkable? Don't they give you goosebumps? You know what happens when you get goosebumps? They've dazzled you. They got you. And you're probably going to tell somebody about it. Now, the thing is, if you don't get these folks and hire them and recruit them this way, then you're really losing a big opportunity. And one of the things that I used to do, it's been really fun. I used to ask people who were vying for customer service jobs in those days, we call them. I'd like to say, do you love human beings? Well, this wasn't a standard, a typical recruitment question, right? So they would look at me like they knew it was a trick question, but they just couldn't, for the life of them, figure out where I was going with it, right? So I'd see the pupils and the glaze, and so I'd say, okay, try this. Tell me a story, okay, that would convince me of something that you've done that would prove that you love Homo sapiens. And I would sit back. Now, the interesting response was the people who really didn't get it, you know, would tell you some lame story that would leave you cold like a fish, right? But the people that got it, they would leave you with goosebumps. You could tell right away. And I always, you know what, I could teach them to add and subtract. I could teach them the contents of the business. What I can't teach them is to love people. And if you believe in servant leadership, that's what you hire for. Secondly, dumb rules. You got to kill dumb rules. A dumb rule is a rule customers hate. Yet for some reason it's propagated in our business. And we expect our frontline people to enforce it. Do you guys have any dumb rules? Let me give you an example. It was a place in Vegas. Nobody's here from the Mirage? in Vegas. So we were recently there, and it was a bad day, so we decided to go and have some corned beef. So we go into this, oh, I wish I could remember, just absolutely great food. And it was later at night, so we go in, my wife and I, and we asked for a booth. I love booths. And so the hostess says, and I thought, oh, geez, here it comes. I'm sorry, I can't give you a booth. Why is that? Well, we reserve booths for parties of 4 or more. And so I look around. There's nobody else in this restaurant but us, okay? Nobody. And I said to her, you're kidding me, right? So at this time, Lonnie knows what's coming. She runs out of the restaurant. Because I am the Darth Vader of serving when it comes to this. I said, I said, you can't think for yourself, right? And she said, yeah, I can. I said, well, what's the right thing to do in your opinion? Don't you think the right thing to do is to give us the booth? Yeah, but they won't let me. Okay, it's they, right? So it's like booted upstairs. So here's a person, and I didn't go any further, but here's a person who knew the right thing to do, was not empowered to do it, and clearly had been punished in the past for doing it. The dumb rule is that, and that's what we have to get rid of. But look at, from an internal perspective, we have to look at how we deal with customers, and we have to be able to, the third point, is really inject some flexibility into the system. We need to empower our frontline people to say yes, not enforce policies, which basically equate to saying no. So we have to give them some capability. The last thing I want to mention is what happens when there's a mistake. What people don't realize is if we have effective service recovery, we can actually build customer loyalty versus never having made the mistake at all. You buy that? Like, it's not, like if we can fix it and do the unexpected, we leave them gasp-worthy, leave them breathless, and it's amazing. They forget the original problem, and they're so impressed. How many of you have got service recovery strategies or procedures in your business? I have to tell you, nobody does, and yet, one of the most powerful sources of loyalty is the ability to recover. And I know one of the reasons why people don't like to do it, because they don't want to admit that they make mistakes. Give me a break. Of course we make mistakes. Every organization makes a mistake. The wonderful thing about it is if you understand the power of recovery, you can actually capitalize from that and actually build the value of your business.